Hello, Information Matters is delighted to present you with a unique fireside chat series we call InfoFire. We will bring you thought leaders in the information field who will share their perspectives and their stories. Like any fireside chat, InfoFire is informal yet a structured conversation between our guest and the host. That's me. I am Shalini R, an associate editor of Information Matters. I've had the privilege of teaching and researching library and information science for more than 40 years at the University of Mysore. I founded the first iSchool in India for the International School of Information Management with magnificent grants from the Ford Foundation and our industry partner, Informatics India. Taking a 360-degree view of information, InfoFire brings you experts from academia and the industry who would share their opinion on what matters to and shapes the information society that we are in. A little bit of trivia about fireside chats. Did you know that the term was first used to describe a series of 360 evening radio addresses given by the US President Roosevelt between 1933 and 44? Okay, here we go with our first episode of InfoFire. And our guest today is Dr. Mike Eisenberg, the founding dean of the University of Washington Information School. Hi, welcome to the first episode of InfoFire, the fireside chat series by Information Matters. Today, I'll be chatting with Dr. Mike Eisenberg, Dean Emeritus of the University of Washington Information School. The topic of our conversation today is changing contours of the iField. Welcome to this podcast series, Mike. We are delighted to have you with us today. As founding dean of the iSchool, you have been a participant observer and witnessed the emergence of the iField and the iSchool movement. So you have had a ringside view of this fascinating journey. So tell our audience today who you are and how you happen to be here.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. And as a fan of Information Matters, and of course, a big supporter of the information field, I love your use of the term iField. Maybe we'll talk about that a little. I'm pleased to be here. I think I came here because for the past 30, 40 years, I have been involved with the information field. I came to Syracuse University in the late 1970s. I was first hired as an administrator in 1979, got my PhD and stayed on. And I was there during some of the very formative years. Looking back in preparation for this interview, I realized that I helped to get the information management program, our second master's degree, approved through the University Senate. Dean Robert Taylor asked me to do that. That was even before our undergrad program. And then I've been involved with various aspects over the years, the research through ACES and other organizations and funding sources, and then the tremendous growth of the information schools in the 90s and the 2000s and to the present. So I'm really glad to be part of it all.
Okay, so you've been an architect of the forging of the iField. What, according to you, are the forces that led to the formation of the iField and also the iSchool? Where and when would you start the clock?
Well, I think we start the clock back to the beginning of human civilization. Homo sapiens have succeeded as a species because of our ability to process information. If there's one thing I think we could put our finger on, it's that the human brain is an amazing information processing organ, so much so, more so than any other species that ever existed. And it's information that allows human beings from the very beginning, whether it was hunting and gathering to agriculture, and then, of course, the Industrial Revolution, and then the Information Revolution. But all these revolutions are information-based. So that's where I would begin with the importance of our field and information science in having its place in society. I think, though, as a recognizable, and also I will say that the institutionalization of information through libraries and information processing and things like language and counting and all kinds of things, and record keeping is also all information science. So that does go back millennia. But the field itself has really taken off since World War II. A lot of it came out of the espionage that was conducted. A lot of work was done. And the library science field kind of morphed beginning in about the late 60s, early 70s into more concerned with information science. My own roots are at Syracuse University, and in 1970s, Syracuse was the very first school to change its name from a library science school to information science, and actually they did it as information studies. They became the School of Information Studies in the 70s under Dean Robert Taylor, who was one of the giants of our field. And Bob, working with other deans at other schools like Pittsburgh, which is also one of the earliest schools who had it, I believe it was an information science or an information systems program within its library school. And then other schools like Rutgers and Drexel University, and like I said, Syracuse, Pittsburgh. These were the schools that kind of got together. There was a gang of five. I think it was Syracuse, Rutgers, Pittsburgh, Drexel, and who am I missing? I'm going to be in trouble for that. I'll think of it in a minute. But these were the schools and the deans that came together originally to kind of work and to help the field to progress and to move over. There were also a tremendous amount of research going on coming out of the 50s and into the 60s and 70s. There were some real giants. Jerry Salton at Cornell was one of the pioneers of information retrieval. And I can tell you that Brennan Page from Google studied all of the works of the great information science search people. There was Tefko Sarasevich at Rutgers, who was a researcher up until recent times, who did a lot of work on relevance. Nick Belkin, Brenda Dervin. In England, there was work, they call it the Cranfield study. So there was always a lot of things going on in the information field.
So you would go back to the origin of Homo sapiens, as author Yuval Noah Harari would say the cognitive revolution in his book, Homo sapiens. In a sense, cognitive paradigm is one of the dominant paradigms in information science in the 1980s. However, as a field, I feel, or the information field is of a relatively recent one. So my question to you is that how would you say, or how this field has formed its distinctive nature? What are the distinctive or defining features of the iField according to you?
Yes, well, you know, some people like to think of information science as a crossroads, that we bring together computing and social science. We bring mathematics in, we bring psychology, we bring technology and information management and business. And that's true, but we have our own clear foundations, principles, knowledge, and findings. And that relates to things like the organization of knowledge, which goes back again millennia, how we, and then how we find information, the whole search aspect. That's a foundational information type understanding. And then we have things like information processing, information systems, information behavior. We certainly today have the questions of the ethics of information and all the philosophical aspects. Michael Buckland, of course, studied what is information, and which is an essential aspect of the field and what we're about. So we have some strong foundational aspects. I used to teach a course at the University of Washington for undergrad, the gateway course for the undergrad program called the Intellectual Foundations of Information. And it was really hard to get it all in because there is so much that we needed to cover. You know, but even the beginning of binary number systems for computing is a foundational information. And Shannon and Weaver and all those kinds of developments are important as well. And certainly today, the whole area of human-computer interaction, and whether it's information architecture or other information type understandings, these are central parts of our field.
So according to you, you would trace the philosophical foundations or the principal theoretical foundations of the field, iField, to information itself, information processing as the base, right? So, and then the whole lot of emergence of particularly search, information retrieval, and the related fields. So according to you, you would look at, I mean, that is one phrase that you coined actually, the big tent. So you would like to call the information field or the iField as the big tent that would embrace various dimensions of the information field, right? So iSchools have managed to do that. And then my question to you is that, according to you, what is the good, bad, and the ugly side of the emergence of the information school?
Yeah, well, the good is what we've seen. We've seen a tremendous explosion and an offering of opportunities to people. I mean, really, the field talks about the triangle of people, information, and technology. That's what we do. And yes, I think within that triangle, within that pyramid, we should have a big tent, a big umbrella, and embrace. We should be inclusive and bring people in instead of looking for reasons to exclude. And we also should partner and team up with computing science, with business, with psychology, philosophy, all the other fields, medicine, of course. Medical informatics is its own field, and yet it is informatics, which is the information side of information and technology and people. So that's the good. And you know, back in 1998, 1999, I was recruited from Syracuse to the University of Washington. And I brought a number of people with me, and we started, we were called at the time the Graduate School of Library and Information Science. And we quickly dropped the graduate because we added undergraduate stuff immediately. And then we dropped the, we wanted a bigger umbrella term. And I'm a librarian, so good cataloging is when you have a lot of different terms like information management, and library science, and knowledge. You look for a bigger term, and that term is information. So right from the start, we started calling ourselves the information school. Nobody else had really phrased it that way. People talked about schools of information science, information studies, information systems, but no one said the information school. And that became our name. And then we adopted first the kind of abbreviation iSchool. And it just caught on like wildfire. And there was a meeting actually of a number of the deans of the top schools. I think it was in the around 2003, it was at Chapel Hill. And that's where the group came together. Illinois was there, and Michigan, and John King, who was a real leader, and Ray Von Dran, the dean from Syracuse, and David Fensky from Drexel. Tony Carbo, by the way, from Pittsburgh, was really an important organizing person. She really brought us back together in, I think it was 99, 2000, to start to work together. And that was really great. And that's when the group adopted the iSchool moniker as our signature. And, you know, if you think about the I in Apple, that Apple uses, the iPhone, the iPad, the iMac, whatever, it's very ambiguous of what the I stands for. Apple will never tell you whether it's individual information, you know, whatever it might be. And I think that's kind of cool. And that's one of the reasons we kind of adopted it. Apple had helped us with the marketing. So we are the iSchools. And I think it just makes a whole lot of sense. And so I think that's the good part. And I love the fact that it expanded in the late 2000s around the globe. I mean, schools in Korea and China, in Japan, Europe, Germany, Denmark, France. I don't want to leave anybody out, but India, of course. The schools began to adopt and use the term. Where there are over 100 iSchools today. So I think that's the good. The ugly is that I don't think we've necessarily adopted a full collaboration model within the field. It's such a big field. There's so much work to do. There's so much action, we might say, that there's no need for us to compete. Yeah, even among the top students, for doctoral students and whatever, there's plenty of doctoral students and people that want an education to go around. So, I mean, there can be a healthy bit of competition, but I think for the most part, there should be collaboration and cooperation and coordination. And I don't think we've necessarily done that to the extent that we could. There is the iSchools organization, and I was involved with helping to form that, and I think it was an important step forward. But sometimes, from what I've observed, the iSchools organization has gotten bogged down in bureaucracy and process and organizational stuff and red tape, and I don't think that's good and healthy. What we need to really be doing is expanding opportunity for human beings to become part of our field, to learn the basics of information science, whether you, and that goes down to the elementary schools and the high schools and undergraduate education. I mean, information science is as fundamental as math and reading and writing and computing, chemistry, physics, science, social science, you know, social studies, government. I mean, think about it. Information is the basis of every field that people do something in. My own work goes back to information literacy. Information literacy is information science skills and knowledge so that people are better able to process information. Reading and writing themselves are information processes. And so I think we need to be incredibly ambitious to bring opportunity to as many people as we can. And I think that we can take a leadership role in the world and in academia in particular, and business and industry, to use information and technology for good, for increasing opportunity. As our world changes, and we've moved already from an agriculture to an industrial to an information society, economy, and world, I do think that the information schools and the information field have a tremendous role to play. So I would like to, in Star Wars, Darth Vader, of all people, says to Luke, you know, embrace your destiny. Luke, this is your destiny. And I like to say that, you know, the information field, we need to fulfill our destiny.
Okay. So, like you, I too believe that, it's life is not life, especially academia is not a zero-sum game. So, according to you, what iSchool should be doing is more of cooperation, collaboration, etc. That's a very important. So, you think that it is not happening to the extent that you would like that to happen amongst the iSchools, right? There should be more collaboration and cooperation.
Yeah, from where I sit, there's still too much jockeying for position or power rather than truly collaborating to rise all boats so that everybody is growing and expanding. Now, one of the things we have to recognize is the cultural and societal differences when you have a global field. And that we have to be very sensitive to and understand. And also, though, we're going to make some mistakes and we have to be forgiving. We have to not pounce when someone makes a mistake. What we have to do is to work together. And that's what I mean, because the human side, the human perspective is part of our very foundations and our roots. We need to live that, to put that into every aspect of what we do. If we're doing human-computer interaction, or we're doing new algorithms for knowledge organization or search, there's a human side to everything, right? And we need to think about that. I really would like to see us working together. I take great pleasure when I see iSchools around the globe succeeding. It's not a jealousy kind of thing. So yes, the other thing, I think we need to collaborate with others on our campuses and in our institutions. I'll give you an example. The arts and sciences, the humanities and social sciences in particular have had a tough go in recent times and in recent years in terms of funding and opportunities, and yet we know how important that is. Well, I think the iSchools can team up with philosophy, with music, with the art departments, with drama, with psychology. And if students, undergraduates in particular, get a little bit of an information science education along the way, maybe it's a minor, maybe it's a series of courses, you can do music informatics, you can do work in the art industry. Look at visual computing and the visual presentation of information. Look at the opportunities that are going to afford to those who work in the metaverse. I've worked in virtual worlds for decades, and when you find a graphic artist who has capabilities in that area, it's amazing. Same thing for musicians and psychologists and anthropologists to help us study all these things. So I do think this collaboration should be one of the things that we put right up there as one of our essential values. Okay.
So you want more interdisciplinarity, multidisciplinarity brought into the iField, number one. And also for another takeaway from your recent key point is that human centricity should be much more heightened in the iSchool curriculum. Is that what you mean by values that we need to add or bring into the iSchool?
Yes, although I will say that, when I look at the curricula and what's going on in the classes, I have very little quarrel. I think that's one of the good things. We know how to do that. Okay. So I don't think we need to spend a whole lot of time in revising curriculum and, making the very good even better, or the better. I just think that's not where our efforts need to go. Where our efforts need to go is to really helping to spread the message and to expand opportunity. At the University of Washington, we have a lot of undergraduates in our informatics bachelor's program. I think it's well over 1,000 now, I believe. I mean, that's a lot of students. But that's not nearly enough, because we turn away hundreds of students every year that want an informatics degree. I think it's our responsibility to provide opportunities for every student that is eligible, that meets admission standards, and that wants a degree. So I would like to see 2,000-3,000 undergraduate students in informatics. I would like to see the informatics minor on campus available to every student that wants it. And that, again, could be 5,000 students. I'd like to see the iSchools teaming up with the public schools, going into the high schools and offering courses and working with teachers to gain an information understanding. You know, what's really interesting is that every human being, well, not every, but most human beings today carry with them a very powerful information processing device. You know, it's this thing, right? This smartphone, and it's not a phone, it's a smart computer. And, you know, the digital divide is not necessarily one of the hardware anymore because of these. It is the connectivity, it is the networking, and it's the understandings about how to use these things effectively, what's going on, the ins and outs and workings of things like Facebook. It's how networking can be used effectively. It's the ethical aspects, it's the privacy aspects, it's making apps that meet people's needs. You know, all those possible things. What a field to be in. I mean, it's been, I'm glad that I lived my lifetime when I did, but, you know, the next 20 to 50 years are going to be amazing. And also the solutions to some of the world's problems, like climate change, which is very serious, like violence, like hunger, like economics, they're information problems as well as physical and, you know, scientific problems to be addressed, but it's really information. Isn't that what everybody talks about when they're saying climate? Well, show me the evidence, show me the facts. That's information, and how do we get that, and how do we collect and process and summarize so the information field has a tremendous role to play immediately in things like emergency preparedness and services in disasters and crises. But we have an equal role to play in helping the world to be a better place for all. And you know, I am a bit of a dreamer, but I do think we can do that.
So in line with your personal motto, do better. So you expect that the iField should be more inclusive, do better to solve the world's problems. Is that the future that you envision for information field?
Yes, I do. Yeah, make it better on every level. I can make it better today by smiling, by interacting well with other human beings, helping them out. Using my expertise in constructive ways, but also we do that through our research. We make it better by uncovering truths. There's some faculty at the University of Washington who work in the area of computing and helping people, adaptive computing, who may have handicaps or other disabilities that would help them. We have faculty who study mis and disinformation, which we know is one of the biggest problems facing us in the world. We have people doing medical informatics, people looking at gaming, and I know that's happening across the information field and across the world. That makes it better, right? And then we do that through education by providing opportunities for people. And it's not just an elitist thing where we want the best and the brightest. I don't want just the best and the brightest. I want everyone. I have good friends who work with heavy machinery. You know, they run bulldozers and cranes and things like that. Well, you should see how they do things today in terms of the sophistication of the bulldozer in deciding how level a workspace is, or where they should dig and what they should do. So even construction is has an information component to it. Certainly medicine does with all of the monitoring and things. And again, on our devices, we can make it better. Happiness. You know, there's a faculty member, Jenna Hartle at University of Toronto, who studies joy and information. And I think that's great. And also I want to put a plug in for her InFideos, which are short videos that explain the foundations of informatics. I think everybody should take a look at those. They're wonderful. And that's the kind of thing we need to do. We need to get the word out. We need to help to educate people, help them to learn. You know, we don't need to necessarily teach and train. We need to help people to learn about information, to take a broader view, to live fulfilled lives, to make it just a little better. And that's what I've tried to do through my students, through building lasting institutions. You know, it's not that, you know, Mike was the dean of the iSchool at Washington. No, what's important is that there is an iSchool at the University of Washington that is doing great things. And the same thing around the globe.
So your message is that, you know, the iSchool or the iField can make the world a better and a happy place, right? So yes. What's your message to the graduate or the young students who are now joining the iField? What do you want them to be doing or focusing, you know?
Well, so my advice would be similar to what others might say: follow your passions, to look for personal fulfillment, look for professional and work fulfillment. I don't like the boundary between work and play. You know, when I'm doing something meaningful, teaching a class or engaging with people about information, that's fulfilling. So do that. It's not about the money. You know, on your deathbed, you're not saying, gee, I wish I had more money and bought more things. It's to pass it on, to make it better. Maybe that's, you know, if in a sentence, it's make it better. But it's also to just to revel in this wonderful field, in this wonderful area. You know, when I first found information as a field, I was a high school teacher in my early 20s, and I was a pretty good teacher, and I was teaching history and social studies, but I wasn't passionate about it. It didn't, you know, I knew that there had to be something more, and I was looking around for graduate degrees, and I saw library science, frankly, and the bells went off, the heavens opened up. I knew I had found my passion, and it is library, but it's not just library, it's information. And whether people come to the field from information systems or information management or library science, again, that's the big tent too, that we're all in this together. It doesn't have to be. Library science is a mainstay and important things, and libraries today are doing amazing things throughout our information society. And I give them a lot of credit and a lot of praise. But also the people working in human-computer interaction, people working in systems, in information management, in information ethics, and that whole aspect. So I guess my final message is to seek fulfillment and seek to make it better through information.
Okay. So you really envision the iField to be truly open and boundaryless, right? And to be open to everybody and to open its arms to all the streams of the various disciplines and be able to make this a better world. So thank you so much, Mike, for taking us through this journey of the past and the present and possible future of the iField. So with this, I would like to thank Information Matters and, of course, Professor Mike Eisenberg for this wonderful opportunity to interact with you and have this message out to you people. Thank you.
My pleasure, and thank you for a very enjoyable interview and a meaningful questions. Those were great. Thank you.
Thank you.